My name is Patience M. Orta. I'm 31 years old, and I own a small auto repair shop just outside Denver. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. I grew up in my father's garage, watching him fix everything from old Fords to broken lawnmowers. That smell of oil and steel, it's in my blood. I built my business from the ground up, one customer at a time. I know who I am. I'm proud of it. That's why what happened 3 weeks ago at my fiancé's office party hit me like a wrench to the gut. Liam Foster, my ex-fiancé now, is everything I'm not. Smooth talking, sharp dressed, and charming in that effortless corporate way. He works in marketing, the kind of job where people wear expensive smiles and talk about synergy like it's oxygen. When we first met, he told me he admired how down to earth I was, said I kept him grounded. I thought it was a compliment back then. I should have known it was foreshadowing. When he invited me to his company's holiday gala, he called it the perfect chance for everyone to meet the woman who keeps me balanced. I hesitated. Those kinds of events always make me feel like an oil stain on a white carpet, but I wanted to support him. I thought love meant showing up even when it's uncomfortable. The hotel ballroom was glowing when we arrived. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, people wearing $1,000 confidence. I'd traded my usual coveralls for a black satin dress and heels I could barely walk in. Liam's coworkers swarmed him the moment we entered. I hung back, smiling politely, nursing a glass of wine, pretending to fit in. Then one of his colleagues, a guy who looked like he was born inside a suit, turned to me. "So, Patience, what do you do?" Before I could answer, Liam laughed. "She owns a little car shop, our very own grease queen." The group chuckled. Someone muttered, "That's cute." My stomach tightened, but I forced a polite smile. Liam winked at me like it was some inside joke we shared. I let it slide, pretending it didn't sting. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe he was just nervous and trying to make conversation. But the night only got worse. An hour later, Liam stood at the head of the room with a champagne glass in hand. "I just want to say a few words," he announced, flashing that easy grin everyone seemed to adore. The chatter quieted. The spotlight found him. He thanked his team for a great year, complimented his boss, toasted the company's success. Then, without warning, he said, "And a special thanks to my fiancée, Patience. She's not exactly a corporate girl, but hey, she's great with her hands. If anyone's car breaks down, you know who to call." The room erupted in laughter. It was the kind of laughter that isn't cruel on the surface but feels like it. Polite, amused, patronizing. 100 eyes turned to me. My cheeks burned so hot I could have welded steel with them. Liam was beaming, soaking in the attention, while I sat there frozen in disbelief. In that moment, it wasn't just a joke. It was a mirror, showing me exactly how he saw me. Not as an equal, not as a partner, but as a punchline. I waited until the applause died down, then quietly slipped away. The air outside was cold and sharp, biting through my thin dress. I stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights, my reflection shimmering in the glass. I could hear muffled laughter from inside, echoes of his voice blending with clinking glasses. A few minutes later, I heard the door open behind me. "There you are," Liam said, stepping out with that same easy tone. "You disappeared." I turned slowly. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" He blinked, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" "The toast," I said. "You made me sound like a novelty, like some mascot for people who can't change a tire." He laughed softly. "Come on, babe, it was just a joke. Everyone loved it." "I didn't," I snapped. His smile faltered. "You're taking this way too seriously." "No, Liam," I said, my voice shaking now. "I'm taking it exactly as seriously as I should. You humiliated me in front of your entire office." He sighed, his charm cracking just a little. "You're being dramatic. If you can't handle a little teasing, maybe that's on you." And there it was, the final gear clicking into place. Every offhand comment, every moment he corrected the way I spoke, the way I dressed, the way I worked. It all led here. "Do you even hear yourself?" I said, disbelief flooding my voice. "You say you love me, but you treat me like I'm beneath you, like I should be grateful you put up with me." He crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. "You're twisting everything. You think fixing cars makes you special? It's not that impressive, Patience. It's manual labor. I was trying to help you laugh at yourself." Something in me went still, cold and certain. I reached for the engagement ring, slid it off, and placed it gently in his hand. "You don't get to laugh at me anymore," I said quietly. "Good luck finding someone you actually respect." "Wait, what are you doing?" he stammered. You're ending our engagement? Over a joke? It's not just a joke, I said. It's who you are. I turned and walked back into the ballroom. Heads turned as I passed. Conversations paused. I didn't care. I went straight to the table, picked up my clutch, and set my empty champagne glass beside his plate. The ring still glittered in his palm like a tiny lie. Liam followed me inside, his voice sharp now. You're really going to make a scene? You already did that for me, I said calmly. He tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Let me explain. I've heard enough, I said, meeting his eyes. You wanted an audience, Liam. Congratulations. You've got one. The room was silent. Only the hum of the chandelier filled the space. Then I turned and walked out, heels clicking against the marble, heart pounding with every step. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I saw him through the glass wall, frozen in the spotlight he loved so much, still holding that ring, still clueless about how completely he'd lost me. In the silence of the descending elevator, I exhaled for the first time that night. Relief mixed with heartbreak, anger with peace. I had walked in as someone's fiancée. I was leaving as myself again. And for the first time in years, that felt like freedom. The first morning after the gala felt like the quiet after a storm. Sky scrubbed clean, air brittle and cold. I brewed coffee at the shop before sunrise, the hum of the lift and the tick of cooling engines steadying my hands. Grease didn't judge. Steel didn't lie. My world still worked if I turned the right bolts. My phone, however, had other plans. By 8:12 a.m., 3 missed calls from Liam. By 8:30, a thread of texts from numbers I didn't recognize. By 9:05, a coworker of his, Clara, DM'd me on social. Are you okay? Last night looked rough. I stared at the message, then set the phone face down on the parts counter and went back to a brake job that needed new rotors. The rumors arrived before lunch. A client, regular, nice guy, with a Subaru, cleared his throat when he handed over his keys. Hey, didn't mean to pry, but my cousin's girlfriend works with Liam. She said you kind of blew up at him? He winced, as if the words had teeth. I smiled without showing mine. I ended an engagement I should have ended months ago. The truth is a wrench, heavy and useful. Your rear pads are down to the metal, by the way. I'll have you back on the road by 3. He nodded, relieved, by my answer, by the competence, by the promise of movement. Everyone relaxes when the person holding the tools isn't rattled. The afternoon brought screenshots. A friend from high school texted me a collage of posts lifted from Liam's private feed, which apparently wasn't private enough. Sometimes people just can't handle a joke. You try to include them, and they turn it into a scene. Emotional immaturity is exhausting. The caption, dodged a bullet. I scrolled once, twice, then stopped. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Silence can be strategy. I opened my notes app and started a list titled Receipts. By dinner, another message chimed, this time from a number saved under Maya, Toyard, who'd become a soft friend over midnight calls and coffee runs. He's spinning. People are sharing your face from that toast. Do you want me to come over? I typed, no, I'm okay. I'm working late. Then, thank you. I slept hard, bone deep, tired, no dreams, until the 6 a.m. alarm. The shop kept time even when life didn't. I swept floors. I inventoried spark plugs. I watched the sun smear gold across the concrete like a blessing. On day 2, the apologies began to sneak through the cracks of the narrative Liam had lacquered over everything. A woman named Priya, whom I recognized from the party as the one with the emerald earrings who laughed politely at everything, sent a private message. For what it's worth, you were dignified. He wasn't. I'm sorry I laughed. Another colleague wrote, he called you Grease Queen all quarter. We told him it was disrespectful. At noon, I got a new message with a video file. No text, no name, just the footage. Liam at the mic, grin sharp enough to cut, voice charming enough to make a room clap in on command. Not exactly a corporate girl, but she's great with her hands. The camera pivoted to me, my face still, eyes burning, and then the laughter. The frame jerked, and through the open terrace door, you could barely hear my voice later, level and low. You don't get to laugh at me anymore. My hands trembled, not from shock, from validation. I watched it once, then again. Then I saved it to receipts and tucked my phone away like a blade I might need later. That evening, I posted a single sentence on my business page, black text on a white background. Respect should never be the punchline. No names, no hashtags. An hour later, a client commented, "Proud to bring my truck to a woman who runs her shop with more integrity than most corporations." Someone else, "Say less." Then the messages multiplied. Soft, steady, like rain building roads into the dirt. Day 3, the ripple hit Liam's office. A number I didn't know called while I was lowering a Civic off the lift. I answered on speaker, grease in my cuticles, sweat behind my neck. "Ms. Orta, this is Frances Chen, HR Director at..." She named Liam's company. "Do you have a few minutes?" "Not many," I said. "I'm working." "I'll be brief," she replied, a clean voice sharpened by policy. "I've been made aware of an incident at our holiday event involving one of our employees and an inappropriate toast. A recording has circulated internally. I wondered if you wanted to provide any context." There was a time in my life when that question would have made me sorry for inconveniencing anyone. That time had expired with the champagne. "I don't have commentary," I said. "Just facts. He's mocked my work since we started dating. He made me a punchline in a room where my worth didn't exist to him, and I ended it." Silence. Papers shifting somewhere I couldn't see. "Understood," she said. "Thank you for your time." After we hung up, I stood there a full minute, hand flat on the Civic's hood, letting the hum of its engine remind me, some things run smoother when they're properly maintained. That night, Liam called again. I let it ring out. He texted, "This is getting blown out of proportion. You're hurting my career." Then, "You ruined my promotion." I typed and erased. Typed, erased. Finally, I wrote, "I didn't ruin anything. You did when you decided my dignity was disposable." I hit send. I turned the phone over. I went to bed. On day 4, a woman came into the shop around 10 wearing a slate wool coat and a look that had weathered both wind and office politics. She hovered by the door until I waved her in. "Can I help you?" She stepped forward, unclasping her hands. "I'm Alyssa," she said. The name slid across my tongue like a memory I didn't own. She saw the flicker in my face and smiled without warmth. "Liam's ex." I said nothing. "I didn't come to stir things up," she continued. "I came to tell you that what you did, walking away, was the kindest thing you could have done for yourself." She glanced around the shop, taking in the order, the quiet pride built into pegboards and labeled bins. "He used to do it to me too, but in different words. I was too intense, too ambitious, too much. He likes women he can polish into something he can show off." I held her gaze. I stopped being his mirror. "Yes," she said, that small, brutal smile again. "You did. And now he's furious the reflection doesn't adore him back." Alyssa set a plain white envelope on the counter. "For you," she said. A copy of the promotion memo he bragged about, dated 2 days before the gala. Contingent on continued professional decorum. HR will do what HR does, but proof matters. I didn't touch the envelope. "Why tell me?" "Because women like us," she said, "are always told to be grateful or be quiet. You chose neither. That matters." She hesitated. "And because I wanted to watch someone follow through, I didn't." She left with a measured nod. I watched her cross the street, coat slicing through winter air, and wondered how many versions of me had stood in rooms like mine, turning open hands into fists only after they were dismissed. By the weekend, the video had become office myth, passed on encrypted chats and whispered side-eyes, summarized by those who felt guilty for laughing and those who felt seen by my refusal to. A junior analyst, maybe 25, freckles like someone had shaken cinnamon over her cheeks, walked in near closing with a flat tire and adrenaline in her voice. "I can come back Monday," she rushed. Someone at work said you might stay open?" "Roll it in," I said. "We'll patch what we can." As I worked, she hovered, then blurted, "I was there. I laughed because everyone laughed, and I'm new, and I hate myself for it." I looked up at her, palm braced on the tire iron. "You don't have to hate yourself. You just have to choose better next time." Tears sprung, quick as rain, just as foolish. "I will," she said. "We all will. People are talking. About sexism, about class, about how we treat people who don't fit the room." "Good," I said. "Rooms should fit people, not the other way around." When she left, she squeezed my hand like a small oath. Monday, a final domino tipped. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Promotion paused pending review. Thank you for your candor." No signature. It didn't need one. Minutes later, Liam called again. This time I answered. "You proud of yourself?" he snapped. No preamble, no apology. "You torpedoed my future because you couldn't take a joke." I listened to the static in his anger and thought about how often I'd calibrated myself to keep his edges smooth. Not anymore. My future, I said, doesn't require anyone to be small. You're vindictive, he hissed. I'm finished, I corrected. There's a difference. He tried again with the old music. Charm, bargaining, the soft pull of we can fix this. The thing about being a mechanic is you learn the sound of a failing part. His song had a rattle I couldn't ignore. I wish you well, I said, and meant it in the way you wish a storm would go around the town and spend itself somewhere harmless. But I won't be your lesson and your ladder. He cursed. I hung up. The line went quiet, and in that quiet, something inside me finally stopped bracing. That night, after closing, I propped the shop door open and let the cool air sweep away the day's heat. I set my phone on the counter and opened receipts one last time. The posts, the video, the HR call notes. Alyssa's envelope still sealed like a boundary I didn't need to cross unless I chose to. I poured a small bourbon into a chipped mug, the one with Orta Auto stenciled in fading red, and lifted it toward the darkening bay. To respect, I said softly. To women who refuse to be scenery. To the joke that never landed. The toast felt like a blessing I gave myself because no one else ever had permission to. Outside, the streetlight buzzed to life, draping the asphalt in a thin halo. Inside, my tools hung in clean rows, gleaming with the kind of order that isn't fragile. I turned off the overheads, locked up, and stepped into the night with the quiet satisfaction of a job done right. Tomorrow would bring new cars, new customers, and, because people are people, new stories. But tonight, the noise had finally receded, and the engine of my life idled smooth and certain. It's been 6 months since that night at the gala, 6 months since I walked away from Liam and the world that treated me like an accessory in a showroom instead of a woman who built something with her own hands. The shop has never been busier. Maybe it's word of mouth, maybe it's fate, or maybe people just recognize authenticity when they see it. I upgraded the space, fresh paint, new lifts, better lighting. I even added a small corner with a coffee machine and a sign that says, Patience Orta Auto, run by a woman, trusted by everyone. I used to laugh at slogans like that. Now it feels like armor made of truth. Saturday mornings are my favorite. That's when I teach a free class for women who want to learn the basics of car maintenance. The first time I did it, I expected 5 people. 20 showed up. By the third weekend, there were 40. Mothers, students, nurses, delivery drivers. All of them tired of being talked down to by men behind counters. When I handed one of the younger girls a wrench and said, Your hands are going to get dirty, and that's a good thing, she smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. Maybe that's the real legacy of all this. The reminder that strength can be quiet and dignity can be rebuilt from the ground up. Still, sometimes the ghosts show up. A few weeks ago, I ran into someone from Liam's company, a woman in her late 40s, expensive suit, polite smile. She hesitated before speaking. You probably don't remember me, but I was at the party. I nodded, wiping my hands on a rag. I remember most faces from that night. I wanted to tell you, she said, what you did, it made people think. About what we laugh at, what we excuse. It's not just you who walked away stronger. A few of us stopped letting men like him talk over us in meetings. She looked embarrassed for a moment. And for what it's worth, Liam isn't with the company anymore. HR called it a mutual decision, but everyone knows what really happened. I didn't gloat, I didn't even smile. I just nodded and said, actions have consequences. After she left, I sat on the curb outside the shop for a while, the sunlight painting the pavement gold. I thought about how strange it is that the same man who once mocked my calloused hands had been undone by his own mouth. The irony didn't feel bitter anymore. It felt balanced. A few days later, I got an unexpected call. Patience, this is Alyssa. I hadn't heard her voice since that day in the shop. I thought you should know, she said, her tone calm but distant. Liam's trying to start over. Different company, smaller role. He told someone he's focusing on humility and self-growth. I let out a small laugh. Good for him. That's a tune he should have learned a long time ago. He won't call you, she continued. He's too proud. But he's changed, at least a little. Maybe you taught him that lesson the hard way. I didn't teach him anything, I said. He learned it when the world stopped clapping. Alyssa was quiet for a moment. You know, I used to wish I'd walked away the way you did. Maybe then I wouldn't have spent years apologizing for being myself. It's never too late, I said softly. Walking away isn't about time. It's about choosing peace over proof. When the call ended, I realized something. For months, I'd been waiting for closure to come from somewhere outside myself, a word, an apology, a sign that the story had reached its end. But closure had already happened. It had happened the moment I stopped trying to fix what wasn't mine to repair. That weekend, I drove to the lake a few hours north, the place I used to go when life felt heavy. I hadn't been there since before the breakup. The air was still cool. The water still carried whispers of wind across its surface. I parked, took off my boots, and stepped into the shallows. The last of the winter ice had melted, and the water stung against my ankles. I closed my eyes and whispered, "To respect, to peace, to never being anyone's joke again." It wasn't a toast this time, it was a promise. On the drive back, my phone buzzed with a text from one of my apprentices, a teenage girl named Rosie who had joined the weekend classes. Rosie: "I fixed my dad's truck all by myself. He said he didn't think I could. I told him, patience says you don't need permission to prove yourself." I smiled, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. When I pulled into the shop, the sign outside caught the last rays of the setting sun. The letters of my name gleamed faintly in gold. I stood there for a while, watching the lights of the city flicker awake in the distance. My life wasn't perfect. There were still bills, deadlines, long nights, but it was mine, entirely mine. Inside, the shop smelled like home, warm oil, fresh paint, and something deeper, resilience. I picked up the ring wrench from the counter and turned it over in my hand. The same tool I'd used the night after the breakup, when I worked until dawn just to stop thinking. I realized then that I hadn't been fixing cars that night. I'd been rebuilding myself. As I locked up, the young apprentice's laughter echoed faintly from memory, followed by my father's old words, "You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat the things they depend on." I looked down at my hands, scarred, strong, steady. Maybe love and engines weren't so different after all. Both need maintenance, honesty, and respect. And if one breaks beyond repair, you walk away before it destroys everything else. I switched off the lights, closed the door behind me, and stepped into the cool evening. The air smelled like freedom.